Hi, welcome to Beholder Beauty, where we talk about beauty and faith and some of the difficult things in life so that you know that you're not alone. And today I'm so excited because I have a special guest and we're going to talk about home, longing, and belonging with author Rosa Lia Gilbert. Rosa is a believer, a wife, a mother, and a poet. And she lives in Washington with her husband and her 3-year-old daughter, but she was born in the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. And Rosa has the #1 poetry book in Hispanic American poetry and Christian poetry and religious poetry. She's charting there too. Rosa's new book that's out, and you have to get it. It's such a beautiful book. Under the Samán Tree, Poems on Home, Longing, and Belonging with the Wayback Books. Welcome, Rosa.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for having me and including me. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here to talk about.
So tell us about, before we get into the book, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Rosa Lia. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo, which is the capital. Yeah, born and raised there, love my country, loved having a childhood and a life there. And when it got time for me to consider college options, I've always loved writing, obviously. So just the programs in the US were very appealing to me when it came to literature and writing and things like that. So yeah, I went to a small faith-based school where we had different Christian schools come visit and talk about, what the process is like for applying to go to school in the States and things like that. So my parents were very supportive and I had worked really hard just to get good grades and things like that. So I started applying and thankfully got different scholarships to be able to come study undergrad in the United States. And that's really how I first got over here, really, was as a student. And then things kind of just went from there. Deep in my heart, my desire was always to return to my country. All my family is there. I love the weather. I love the life. I love the culture. I love my language. But yeah, God had other plans for me. I met my husband my junior year of college, and it's kind of funny. I think people will read it in the preface of the collection if they have it. I resisted anything that might mean for me to stay in the US for a long time. So at first when you could say my husband and I started being friends, I kind of was freaking out because I knew that I would fall in love with him, and I knew that if I did, that would probably mean staying. And that was really hard for me. And hence why this collection was born and everything. But yeah, I'm now a wife. I'm a mother to a beautiful, feisty Latina American 3-year-old. Her name is Catalina. And yeah, and we recently moved to Washington State. So not only have I been, transitioning of full-on living in the United States for the past 4 years, but then I've also moved states 3 times, it's also shaped a lot of, that home longing and belonging, because it adds another layer when you're also just kind of moving around. And we've just had to do that because of my husband's job. So yeah, we've been married 4 years and this is our 3rd state. So I'm kind of hoping that we stay here for a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of.
Oh my goodness. So you're perfect to write this book because you've lived it out. But before we jump in the book, we're going to do just a little bit of beauty. Something fun. What is your favorite lipstick color or beauty tip?
I brought my favorite lipstick. I grabbed it before.
Oh, which one is that?
I was going to forget. I'm not a huge makeup guru. Everything that I try, my little sister is who tells me to buy it. But I tried this. It's like a lip oil. But see, it's like a really pretty nude color. I'm wearing it right now. And
it's very pretty, yeah.
That's usually my go-to because I like something. I don't like kind of calling attention, but I like having something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of been my favorite lately. So
very pretty. And then, have you ever struggled with your beauty?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a little more of a peek into the Dominican culture, but it's a small country. I think in general, it's very much that culture of I think, and that's pretty much true probably of Latin American culture as a whole. We like to wear like your Sunday best, but every day. Like I would never be caught dead like wearing like a gym outfit to like the supermarket, for example. That's you wear jeans even though we're in a tropical island. You know, you like it's not dressed up in the sense that it's fancy, but it's put together. People, it doesn't matter whether you have a lot or don't have a lot, people look put together. Does that make sense? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that can for sure for any woman like put an extra pressure when you feel like, you know, there is that even though we're like a tropical, mainly Afro Latina country where a lot of women have beautiful curly hair, it's like frowned upon in professional settings. It's been changing, thankfully, in the last like 5, 10 years. But it was frowned upon if you worked at a bank to wear your hair natural, for example.
Oh.
Like that was not proper or that was not professional. Like, you know, you had to have it like, and even now, like I wash my hair, so I quickly like blow dried it. My natural hair is probably more like yours, Deborah, like wavier. It's not like curly, but it's wavy. And I always loved my hair, but that was like a point of insecurity for me of like, oh, if my hair is not like straight all the time, then it's not pretty. Or, you know, if I'm not like, if I have a pimple, like I have to cover it up. I can't like possibly leave my house without makeup, you know, or something like that. And my mom, I have her to thank, honestly. She wanted to make sure that wasn't a problem for me. And I remember I was probably like 14. We were already believers at that point, and she printed the verse in Psalm 139 where it says, "You are beautifully and wonderfully made," and she put it in every single mirror of the house because I was really struggling with insecurity during that time in my life. And I think I really owe it to her that I probably, you know, every woman I think still will always struggle with some sort of insecurity. Sadly, it's kind of in our DNA, but I have her to think that it never evolved into a serious problem for me, and that I was able to, I think, kind of overcome that or become more secure. I also, like, my mom is the type of person that, like, she leaves the house without makeup all the time. So I think seeing her do that growing up also gave me the courage to, like, you know, if I have time to put it on, then that's great. But if I don't, like, I know I'm still beautiful. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit.
I love that perspective. And I mean, I think it might just be kind of a universal thing for us women. I mean, I did notice, like, when I traveled, that people in other countries dress, even at the airport, dress better, where a lot of times we're very relaxed here. You know, then, you know, when I was in high school, straight hair was very in, and I didn't like my curly hair, and my mother kept saying, when you're older, you're gonna love it. And because I think what she really meant is your hair does lose a lot of body, and so if you have as you get older, and as you curly hair, you don't, you know, you retain a lot of it. So I would straighten it, and then in the 1980s, curly hair became really popular, and people were getting perms. So I remember returning back to my hometown during college, when I had my natural hair, and people thought I had gotten a perm, and I'm like, no, this is my natural hair.
I've always had it.
This is it. So I like it because you can wear it straight, or you can wear it curly. My husband prefers it curly. Like, if I go to the hairstylist, I always want to blow it out, and I come back and he's always like, oh, they've done that.
Yeah,
I've done that to you again. You know, he loves curly hair. And so that's
my husband does too. Yeah.
So that's an advantage. But I know what you mean. You would think it takes less care, but it takes a lot of care because it can look disarrayed really quickly.
Yes, definitely. And especially when you have tighter curls, which you have to make sure, like, you always get the balance.
Yeah.
I think it's, like I said, I'm glad that I think the DR, like, as a whole, is embracing it more, because I think so many of the women there actually have that type of hair, and when taken care of, it's so beautiful. Like, it's more of who we are too, as like we're Caribeños, like we're Caribbean, from the Caribbean. So I think that's too why my husband likes it better on me, is because I think it makes him feel like, oh, I look more like my Dominican self.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, I love that though, and I think that part of the conversation will encourage our listeners. Now, though, let's get into your book. And there's the Samán Tree, poems on home, longing, and belonging with the Way Back books.
Yeah.
So let's first start with, how did this come about? How did Under the Samán Tree come about? Like, just the collection and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So actually, a year, like almost a year to the date, so probably a year and a few weeks, I met with, I don't know if I think you're familiar with Cassie Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
She's another one of, on Substack and Instagram and all of that. We actually lived in Ohio, like very close to each other. So I had reached out and was like, hey, it would be great, to connect in person. Like I always, if I'm near someone that I know on social media, I like making the connection in person. I think it's so special. So yeah, so we did that and we met up for the first time, and she's self-published two books, two collections already when we met. So I was kind of picking her brain about all the things, and I felt too like amateur still to try to do a collection, but I was thinking like, oh, maybe I can do a chapbook, which for those who don't know, of our listeners, if someone doesn't know what that is, basically what a chapbook is, it's like, it's not a full book, it's like a pamphlet type poetry collection, and it's typically somewhere from like 10 to like 25 poems. So it's significantly shorter and can specify, like it can be, a collection can have a range of themes where a chapbook you want to focus on something like really niche. So, Deidre has a chapbook and it's The Shape I Take, and it's all about like motherhood and being a woman and what that means to be a woman and to be a mother and to be a wife. And that's very specific. So she wrote, that chapbook. And that's what I thought that Under the Samán Tree was going to be. So that's when I first came, I compiled like a poems I already had, because obviously I had been writing about my country and myself. I had poems that were like dated back to like my high school and my college days that needed to be edited, but like they were there and I knew that they were good and I could keep working on them. So I first came to Kimberly Finney from the Wayback Books with this chapbook manuscript, and I was like, hey, and at this point, she hadn't announced the Wayback Book, so I didn't know. I was just coming to her for editing. And I was like, yeah, like here's my chapbook. What do you think? Like, let's work on it. And I had already felt in my heart, like, oh, it's not complete. Like I know I can keep writing, but then it was gonna be too long and it wasn't gonna be able to be a chapbook. So I was like, it's fine, it's fine. Like it's my first attempt at publishing. Like, let's just keep it like that. And one of my first meetings with Kimberly, she was like, hey, look, I read the whole thing and like I think this can be a collection. I think this could be a first collection. And she really believed in me and my voice and my story, and was just encouraging me to like dig deeper and be like, there's more there that you, and I already knew it. So I felt like it in a way was a confirmation from the Lord, because I think I was just too intimidated to take that leap and kind of, that imposter syndrome of like actually believe in myself that I could, you know, publish a collection. And Kimberly and also another good friend of mine, Chris Ann Valdez, she's also on Instagram and Substack. They were the first to like believe in this project and be like, there's so much more for you to give here. And yeah, that's kind of how that started. And it just like, I would have conversations with Kimberly, just more like creative counseling type of conversations where we would talk things out. And I would just get off the call and like generate just so much. Like the Lord just kept like bringing things out. Some things didn't even make it into the collection. Some things maybe I just needed to write about, maybe difficult family stuff that I decided not to include or things like that. But it was definitely, I needed to write it, like not just for other people to read, but for myself. Like I needed to write this book, and I really needed to kind of process everything that had happened in the last 2 to 3 years since I had gotten married and officially, you could say immigrated and started that process, and all the hardships that came with that, and kind of the unexpected feelings that maybe I didn't think would come. So yeah, that's kind of how Under the Samán Tree it came
And
about.
and then your three chapters. So you have home,
Mhm.
and you have longing, and then you have belonging, and they kind of chronicle your journey, correct?
Yeah,
And
so
yeah, so tell me about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the first, it's almost like the progression of, it goes back in time, it goes in present time, then back in time, then almost forward in time. So the first chapter is longing for home. So it's basically, you could say like my immigration process. So the process with my green card that took 3 years, and a lot of people, don't know this. When you marry a US citizen, it doesn't automatically make you a citizen. It doesn't automatically give you like status, immigration status. So that's why you have to do this green card process. And while you're going through this process, until you get approved or denied, whatever happens, because you're not guaranteed, you can't leave the United States. And that was the hardest for me. I was thinking in my head, I came here to study on a scholarship. I worked during college. I paid my taxes. Like I married, like fell in love with someone I met in college. Like my marriage is clearly not a scam. Like this is gonna be fast. This is gonna be easy. And I know too, compared to other people who wait much longer, maybe my process was shorter. But for what I was thinking, it felt like it lasted forever. And that was the hardest thing, was not being able to go home. Not being able to go home. I had my daughter and I wasn't able to take her to my country for a long time. This Christmas will be our first Christmas since we've gotten married that we will be able to spend with my family. And that's a big deal for me. Like we're
Yeah.
family oriented.
Yeah.
Latin American cultures in general are very family oriented. Like every holiday is a huge deal. Everything that I would see that I was missing out, I missed out on my grandparents' 50th anniversary. I missed out on my sister's high school graduation. Like I missed out on just a lot of really important things that I would have loved to have been there
Hmm.
for, and I just couldn't because of this process that I was going through. So yeah, those poems are really like digging deep into that and those feelings. And even the feelings of sometimes feeling a little like I'm trying to do things the right way, but I feel a little abandoned by the country,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
United States, just
I
because.
think the word when I read some of it too, also too, vulnerable, exposed,
Yes,
naked. I mean, in a sense, because you're having to, I guess the word would be vetted,
yes,
but it's so like personal, impersonal, and I can't imagine what that made you
complicated.
feel like just so
Yes,
so conflicting. Like you want it, but do you want that part of it, you know?
that's spot on. That's spot on. And all the paperwork that you have to put together. And also, like at one point, gave me a travel permit, so I was able to go visit home. And then I lost it. And I lost it because I lost my wallet. And then because I also lost that ID, they wouldn't even let me renew my license. Even though I already had like a legal license here, I was in the system, they just wouldn't reprint it because they couldn't, because I had lost my immigrant ID. That was that moment when that happened, that's when I started writing most of the poems that are in this collection.
That's
That was a low point for me. I think yeah, I felt vulnerable. I felt
mhm.
unrepresented, almost like kind of like I'm doing things, I've done everything that I need to do. I've paid everything I have to pay, but still like you won't like let me drive, kind of thing. Like it was very
Yeah.
it was a
Did
difficult.
those feelings also help lead you though into your your stronger faith with God during that point? Because he was like, I think I read that, what you wrote about that is that how just kind of unrooted you, took everything away, and we're back to that word exposed, but you know,
Yeah.
but then we have a choice at that point, right? And so,
Yeah. Yeah, and even in my writing process, that there was a point where this first chapter, because there's a lot of venting in that chapter, and there was a point where I felt the Lord be like, stop, like this chapter is done. Stop nagging, stop, like how he told the Israelites, like stop complaining, Yeah, that's what I felt because yes, what I went through, I think was hard, and I think that's why those poems are there. I think it's worth bringing that experience to light for other people to see and be able to sympathize with. But also, there's, I think, a line between expressing and then just complaining. And then I got to a point where that was a posture of my heart and I was getting bitter. And God was like, no more. Like, that's done. Like, let's move on. And then that's kind of when I moved on to the middle chapter, which is remembering home. And it's just all about
oh,
childhood memories and the DR landscape and the lushness and the beauty of it. And also not necessarily always a positive. There's like a couple poems that have a little bit of just little bit of difficulty in them too, because obviously, like, it's not like my country's perfect. There's a lot that could be fixed, that could be better. There's a lot of things even within my own family and dynamics that I like left behind and thought like, oh, I'm married, it's gonna be so much better. Like, which it like I love my husband, but to say that no place is perfect, and I also wanted to do justice to that. So I was trying to do a lot of things at once, and I guess my prayer is that I did that in the best way. And then the third chapter is like you jump to the future, almost future mixed with the present, of like me focusing on, even though it's hard to immigrate, even though it's hard to leave your country, your culture, your family, everything that you've known and that you love and maybe that you prefer behind, the Lord gives you so much. And for me, like, I can't, like, He's given me like a wonderful like husband that loves me and cares for me, and not just loves me, but like honestly loves my country, loves my culture, loves my language, like has worked so hard to learn it, wants to pass it on to our children. Like, that's such a blessing to me. Then obviously God gave me a wonderful daughter, gave us a wonderful daughter. Yeah, just has blessed us and provided for us. And so kind of refocusing my heart on that, on the things that He's given me as just free gifts that I can find my home in, but then most importantly, remembering like that
Mm.
my home is.
Your story touches many.
Mm.
It's unique, but I think that the themes in it are universal. You know, you're a mother, you're a wife, to believe your true home is in heaven. And so you have many roles to struggle with, right? And how do you balance this? And I'm kind of saying this like some of our listeners may not be writers, but they may be mothers, they may be wives, they may have a job, I think us women have so many roles and sometimes it's very difficult.
Yeah, I would write whenever I got the chance. So she's 3 years old now, but while I was writing this book, she at one point was one, too. So I would write during nap time. I would write after she had gone to bed. And so my husband was in PA school for 2 years, physician assistant school, which is very, imagine like med school condensed into 2 years. It was very, very hard, and he had to work really hard. So in a way that worked to my benefit, in the sense that I wasn't neglecting him, and he also in a way didn't feel like he was neglecting me, because when he had to study, we would just sit together and he would study and I would write. So it was also in a way like we got to spend that time together, even though if I wouldn't have been writing, I would just have had to do something else because he had to study. Like, that was not an option for him. So in a way, that was like a rhythm that we found, and that's kind of, I would say, how I wrote many of these poems, was during those times of just him studying and me beside him, at the dining table, just writing on my computer or on my journal. I'm very analog, so I like to write things at least like a first draft, pen in my hand, and then I kind of go work on it in the computer. But yeah, I've been known for like, I'll grab my phone and I like record stuff. Like if I'm in the car with Catalina and an idea comes in, I'm like, oh, record this. And so whatever, you make it work, you fit it into your role of mom and wife. You also fit in being a writer, and to like, I do in that way also have to kind of shout my husband out because he's just so supportive of my writing. And I remember one time, because I've always loved writing, but we have different seasons. And I was in college where I was doing a lot of writing because I was a journalism major, but it's a different kind of writing. And then I got married, and then I got, was expecting my daughter. So writing took the back seat for a while. And I remember one time my husband telling me, like, you don't write so much anymore. And that was kind of like why I even got back into writing too, because of Samantha and her giving me this opportunity at
Yeah.
and that's why I tried joining CalaPress and loved my time there, was because I was like, even if I can't be all the time writing,
Yeah.
I need to be involved with words somehow. And I have, like I said, I have my husband to thank for that, because I think he really encouraged me. And I say too in my acknowledgments in my book, like when Catalina was born, I also started thinking like, okay, what am I doing here? Like, obviously I'm a mom. That's like my most important role, is to steward the soul of my daughter. I think that's so weighty. But also God has given me these talents. So like I need to do something with them because
Mhm.
when she grows up, she's gonna realize that I like writing and she's gonna be like, Mom, why didn't you write more? Why didn't you know? So it's like that like gave me a push as well, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Uh, No, I love that. And you can, I think that's what you can feel that in your writing. You can feel that kind of family love there. And I think many mothers didn't, maybe gave up dreams and never came back to them. And I think when the ones that did leave their children with kind of that, kind of an extra, kind of a hope that they can too. So I think it is important to do that. And then I also want to ask you this, and this, I know you're a very humble person, but what's it like for you holding the number one spot in Hispanic American poetry and then also on the charts, Christian poetry and religious poetry? Because I'm sure you never, I
Yeah.
mean, you set out to have coffee with somebody and now you have.
That's so true. Yeah, it's since its release, it's been at the number one new release for that category, which is, every time I still go in to check, like, is this real? Is that really like there? And yeah, I've just felt really humbled, mainly because I know that what that means is that a lot of people have gone like to support me and bought the book. And I think that's what is the most humbling because Amazon will only give you that if you have people buying the book. And to me, that represents like, oh my goodness, people are buying the book. And that's so humbling. And it makes me feel so grateful for my, like the writing community. So obviously like the Way Back to Ourselves community, my fam, and then also my family and people in the DR, because I know so many of my childhood friends, teachers, my family, my cousins, everyone has, bought the book. And yeah, it just makes me feel grateful because I think poetry is very niche, Not every, and in that way, I've always felt kind of like I even say to my acknowledgments, like my mom literally called me last week and was like, my daughter published a book. Like she still can't believe it because we're very different in that way. Like she's artistic in other ways, but she's not a writer. So it's always baffled her since I was little. Like, how did you turn out to be a writer? You know? So so it's just encouraging that my family and friends and community that are not writers necessarily have stepped out to support me. That means a lot because it might not necessarily be the thing that they like the most. Like they might not be poetry lovers, but that's really humbling and I feel very grateful for that. So, yeah,
Well, and I think that poetry, I mean, especially your book, it kind of crosses over to, I think it crosses over just to regular, I don't know what's
yeah,
regular
it's
reading.
storytelling. It's like
Yeah, storytelling. Yeah, kind of storytelling, almost like short stories, but they're, I guess you would call them flash short stories, but they're poetry. And but also I see kind of just the voices that are coming out today in poetry are really speaking to people, and it's a language that kind of people are saying that, well, the attention span is small and keep things short. Well, can't get much shorter than poetry. So maybe that's kind of one of the reasons why it's speaking to them too. But I think a lot of the voices that come out today, like yours and a lot of our community with the Back to Ourselves, one is, and when I was a young lady, we didn't have that. We didn't have poets who loved the Lord who wrote poetry, really. Kind of the poetry was more, at least in my community, was more provocative and just, yeah, edgy and stuff like that. But now this is more like, there's a lot of people writing about God, people writing about motherhood, marriage, but at the same time that struggle. And so I'm not saying it's very authentic, it's very vulnerable, it's very open. And I think that part of that is what's speaking across the genres. But on that note, I know I saw you in a post mention that you want to write fiction. So we're going to talk about what else is up for Rosa before you read your poem, because I want you to read a poem. Are you going to write fiction? Are you going to write a book?
That's so funny because I love novels. Like obviously that's how I even first got into like really loving literature was just reading fiction. And I've always been so impressed by people that can do that. When I was younger, I would write like these stories and things like that. But lately, I've been I don't even know if this is something that I will do or how if this is something that the Lord wants me to write about or not. But I've been very intrigued by, yeah, going back to like home and roots and all that, like my lineage. So there are immigrants like in my line too. So which is funny because I see myself represented in them. So the Dominican Republic in a lot of ways is also a melting pot. So I am 34% Lebanese. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So when when there was more of a Muslim takeover of the Arab world, a lot of Catholic Arabs fled that part of the world, and a lot of them ended up in the DR. Don't ask me why. Don't
Oh,
ask me why. I don't really understand.
okay. So that's your heritage, Kim.
Yes,
Yeah.
they fell in love with it, I think. And also our culture is very family oriented like theirs is. So that's a big part of my upbringing. Like a lot of Lebanese food, Lebanese culture, like that family like rootedness. And so my great grandmother, my grandpa's mother on my dad's side, her and her husband, they came straight from Lebanon. So they were born and raised in Lebanon, were married there, and fled together. So kind of like your story, Deborah. Yes,
Hmm.
exactly like your story. So, but the thing is that once they were there, she had four children, and he left and never came back.
Oh no.
And my grandma tells me this would have been my grandmother's mother-in-law. She just tells me about her. Like, yeah, she spoke Spanish, she learned it, but she had a Lebanese accent until the day she died. Like she was an
Hmm.
adult when she immigrated. And then she was left in a country that was foreign to her to raise four kids and to support them. And she basically did this by she would cook Lebanese food and sell it because it's such delicious cuisine. It's so good. Like Middle Eastern food in general is just so delicious. But yeah, so that her story is
It's
very
kind of her story's kind of percolating.
Yes, her story is percolating, not necessarily like to write an autobiographical or biographical piece, but more than to inject fiction into that. But I think
Hmm.
it's such an amazing story of womanhood, of immigration,
Yeah.
of resilience,
I think that's beautiful. I think that would be a
so
gorgeous
we'll
story. Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I'm not saying like I'm gonna do it. I'm saying that's been
Well,
in
I
my
will
head.
be, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And so, on that, I would love you to read poetry for our listeners here. And I want you to pick the poem, but just I'll tell you some of that I love them all. But these are just the ones I wrote down: A Woman in Exile, Hermit Crab, Peace. I sit under the Samán Tree, but you pick, it doesn't have to be any of these ones, but whatever you feel like right now that you would just love to read.
Those are good picks, Deborah. Lessons from a Hermit Crab is one of my favorites, honestly.
I love how you write about coconuts and crabs and island stuff, but at the same time, it's very bring it into our own personal struggles.
Yes, that is always my hope is like obviously I want to be true to my experience, but I never want to like make it so alienated where people can't relate because mostly I want people to be able to ultimately point them back to God and to remember
Yeah,
like
yeah.
home is important and he gave us physical homes for a reason. I believe that's why he made us diverse. But ultimately we can find home in him and like in any and in each other as believers, like in the church and in the family of believers. Like I think that's important. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and read this one. It actually was inspired. I was reading another collection of poetry of haikus by a Dominican poet, and she had this. I'll read it. I took the liberty of translating it into English, but I'll read it in Spanish and then in English, and then that little haiku is what inspired this poem. So, Danza Eterna by Leonor Elmudeci. And then I translated it and it says, Small hermit crab, its house resting on his back, forever on the move. So this is lessons from a hermit crab. I carry home on my back like a hermit crab carries a shell it finds along a crowded shore. Like the hermit crab holds on and never lets go, I too grow into the places that shaped me. I shape myself around them until they weld with my skin, and there is no telling which is which. The callejón behind my grandparents' house, a sidewalk half cracked from overgrown roots. I close my eyes and feel my feet run up and down the gravel road that connected my world to theirs. How many times did I go to them on hard and hot days, one soul in front of the other, on that hard and hot cement pavement. I'd be surprised if my footprints were not etched there permanently. The shade under the Samán Tree in my parents' backyard where I'd sit and let pink petals shower my hair, populate my scalp. I dyed my hair pink once, and maybe that's why. Maybe I wanted to become something I knew was beautiful. The yellow trumpet flower trees that line the neighborhood streets and main avenues of Santo Domingo each spring, like bulbs of light blossoming, like joy extended to all. I recall the blooms, try to tattoo the memory of them onto my forehead. See if they'll grow sunshine on my mind. See if they'll help me keep happiness alive. I carry home on my back, like the hermit crab, a hard shell of hope. I learn to never let it go. I learn to never leave it behind, lest I forget myself.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that so much.
That's one of my favorite ones.
And that home that you're carrying, it's your home from Dominica too, but it's your home here. It's your home in heaven. It's this kind of,
Yeah,
you
this
know,
identity that we have to carry with us all the time.
yeah, yeah. It's
No matter where we go, it's so embedded, in who we are.
yeah, yeah. And I think that will help a lot of people because I think, like you said, Dominican Republic is a melting pot, America's a melting pot, but really everywhere is a melting pot, really.
Yeah.
And that's why God made us that way.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah. So we're gonna all struggle with those in that sense, and to
For
know
sure.
that we have that hope and we can hold on to it.
And even within the United States, like the United States is an like enormous country. You can testify to this. Like California and Georgia are pretty different,
Oh yeah, completely.
might as well feel almost like a different country in a way. So I even think people that have maybe just even moved states, will hopefully be able to resonate with some of the kind of ideas,
hmm
things that just the truth that I talk about here. So yeah.
And so, what is coming up for Rosa, and where can our listeners find you?
So for me, what's coming up is continuing to share about this book baby. Yeah, hopefully you continuing to have opportunities like this to kind of sit down with people and talk about it. I'm looking forward to the holiday season, going back to the Dominican Republic and spending time there. My daughter, there's a poem in the collection titled On Raising a Homesick Child. And it's so true of like my daughter misses someone all the time, whether it's like my mother-in-law who's in another state or my parents or she's always missing something. And I'm like, I relate to that. So yeah, that's kind of coming up for us as a family and more so like professionally or in the writing sense. Yeah, I continue to be a part of Christianity Today's Young Storytellers Fellowship with Inkwell, which is such a blessing. And we met in person end of September, and then we'll have our last in-person meeting in February. So that's kind of coming up.
Wow. Okay.
That'll be fun. And yeah, just working, hopefully getting to work on different projects with them. Who knows? Obviously I went through a period when I was working on this collection of almost like silence as far as new poetry, but now that this is released and done, it's like the creativity is coming back.
Yeah.
So writing new stuff. I was so like just submerged in this project that I think my mind had a mental block, which I think was good because I think I needed to focus on this. But now that I know that this is out and it's done in the sense that it's published, now my mind is like, okay, go.
So, lastly, would you like to say a prayer for our listeners?
I would love to. Yeah.
Okay.
So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day, for giving us another day of life. Thank you for Deborah and this podcast ministry that she has that I'm sure blesses and touches many to find beauty in you and truth and goodness in you. I pray that she's able to continue to do this. I pray for her upcoming collection that you would just bless everything with that process, that you would give her peace, and that her words, which I've had the pleasure of reading some, I know will bless many hearts as well. Just a story of redemption and your grace. And I thank you for that. I pray for anyone listening today that, Lord, feels like they don't belong anywhere, whether it's they've always been in the same hometown, but they feel like they don't belong there, or they long for a place that feels like home. Lord, we're all like wanderers, we're all pilgrims, we're all exiles in a way, needing to return to you. And I pray that just anyone listening that feels that way, that they would find comfort in the fact that you promised to bring us home. You promised to be our home, even on this earth that changes so much, Lord. You promised to be that anchor. And that's what I've found to be true, is that you are almost like the unmovable root in our lives. And I just pray for hope for anyone that feels that way, that they would be able to tether themselves to you, and that also you would provide that sense of peace and belonging that they may be longing for. And just thank you for this opportunity to be here, for this opportunity to write this collection, and for bringing it to life, because we give all the glory to you. So thank you, Lord. Thank you for Jesus, for your son, and just maybe continue to all walk with the Holy Spirit, and that he would continue to give us that hope and that seal of in our hearts that we are home in you. And I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. That was such a beautiful prayer and a beautiful way to cap off our podcast. I think it just speaks everything that we spoke about, and it's a gorgeous prayer, and I think it's going to bless many. Rosa, thank you so much for being here with us today, praying for you and your book and your family and all the lives that's going to bless through your writing and these poems, and showing people the way back home.
Yes, truly.
All right. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.